been a minute since I've done this. I totally forgot which button my intro was. But that's fine. I can do it later. Hi, everybody. I'm Thomas, and this is KAAMP, the Knoxville Artist Area Networking Platform. Yes. Today, I've got a really cool guest who has a studio pretty much right in the middle of downtown. Will you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Esther Sitver, and I'm an illustrator here in Knoxville.
And is that your main methodology of getting down in your creative space, or do you have other mediums you play into?
Well, all of it goes back to illustration. Even when I'm painting on shoes and things, I'm just illustrating on a three-dimensional surface.
I love that you think everything is drawing, because I share that opinion.
Everything can be drawing if you want it to be, and even with painting, like I used to be scared of learning how to paint because drawing was always my first thing, and my teachers were like, you just draw with the paint. And They were right, and then it wasn't so scary.
That idea hit me real hard one day, and I don't, for the life of me, know why it struck me so hard. But it's a big idea.
Yeah, it can feel so scary, just like the fear of the unknown going into another medium, but then like you have to recognize the expertise you already have, and that it all does kind of translate.
So, when did you first art? When do you first remember arting?
Pretty much as soon as I could hold a crayon.
Fair enough.
I mean, I'm not saying it was good,
right?
But I mean, I was drawing as soon as I could, and I just never stopped.
Do you have any examples of your first creative efforts?
I don't, because my mom doesn't keep a lot of stuff.
Fair.
So she's like, you can do better. And I mean, I'm not offended by it, but you know, she's not like that kind of mom.
Super sentimental, keeps everything.
No, that is not her.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So can we take sort of a chronological walk through your mediums, like what you first started with, what you played with next, and what you do now or recently?
Yeah, I guess it's easiest to start with my middle school approach, because that's the first time I remember having like one medium that I would work with a lot, because before that it was like whatever we did in art class was what I was doing that day. So in middle school, I was doing the Prismacolor pencils, just like bearing down so hard on the pencil that, you know, when you bear down really hard with like the really good colored pencils and it looks shiny because the wax is like covering every
hot.
tooth. Yes. Yeah, and then like you're accidentally breaking the lead with like the amount of force you're using, and the side of your hand turns the color of the pencil.
Lovely time.
I was doing that for a while, and I was like, man, why does my hand hurt? And I was basically trying to get like a painting look with pencils, which is probably the worst way to do it, or at least the way I was doing it wasn't working for me. And then in high school, I did like ballpoint pen and watercolor for a while, like ballpoint pens that I found out would bleed, and I just used that on purpose, like painting over some of my drawings with water on a brush. And then that eventually led me to India inks, and I did that for a while. And then I went to acrylics, and so I was doing mostly India inks and acrylics, trying to do photorealistic painting in high school. And then in college, that became unsustainable because, I mean, in my illustration program, like the deadlines were so tight. The professors didn't really care if you could do photorealism, because they were like, okay, so can everyone else here. Like, what are you trying to say here? And I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? But eventually I found a style in college that works for me that is pretty fast. So that's just doing pen and ink, and then I'll either watercolor it or I will scan it in and then do Photoshop color transparently on top. That's what I usually do.
So is that your normal workflow these days?
That's the easiest for me. I mean, I can do other media. I can do other traditional and digital media, not so much 3D. I mean, I had like one sculpture class in school, and so I don't think I've devoted enough time to that to really know what would work for me, or if I'm a 3D person at all. But yeah, I mean, occasionally I'll do things that are like vector-based, like Adobe Illustrator, but Photoshop is really the easiest for me. And I didn't think it would be, because I was so stuck on being a traditional artist when I entered art school that I was like, no way am I ever going to become one of those digital artists. And then the professors...
And then you found out it was super cool.
Yeah. Then the professors were like, all of you think this isn't for you and you think you'll never get it, but come back to me in 2 years. And I hate to say that they were right.
But they were.
Yeah. I mean, traditional media is still super fun, and I'm not saying that it isn't good or worthwhile, but digital media is also great. But yeah, my favorite is a mix of the two.
So where does that mix play out, like relative to the piece, or are you partial to a workflow for one stage of the process over the other, or?
Well, my workflow is kind of like going back and forth between traditional and digital. So I also did a lot of collage in high school, but that wasn't part of what I used for like college applications and stuff. I've never really been paid to do collage because I feel like, how could I sell an original collage to someone when the papers could be like different years old and it could fall apart? Like
that's a valid concern.
Like maybe if I took a scan of it and I made a nice print, I could sell that, but I wouldn't feel comfortable selling someone something that could fall apart in 2 seconds.
That comes with no warranty. That's an as-is purchase.
Yeah. I mean, like, I know that basically anything that's on paper over time, no matter how archival it is gonna disintegrate. Mm-hmm. But I think the collage is just too risky for me personally with the way that I like to do it. It's not like I'm using all my own papers and things like that. It's like old magazines. But what I do for my normal illustration process is I will write down a bunch of ideas, and then from those ideas I'll pick the ones that seem the most doable to draw. And then I will do really rough thumbnail sketches on like little, maybe like 3x5 pieces of paper, just so I'm making sure that I'm not getting too detailed about things and just focusing on what the message is and the composition and if the shapes are working. And then from those, I'll pick one that works best, and then I'll put that in to Photoshop, and then I will make a reference collage from various images from the internet or images I've taken myself. And so then I'll have this collage that's perfectly over my sketch. And then I will draw traditionally in pencil looking at that on the computer. And then I will ink that drawing. And then after the ink is dry, erase the pencil out. And then scan that into the computer. And then put that in Photoshop, fix up the scan in any way it needs to be fixed up. Like clean it up and stuff, erase out the eraser shavings that might have gotten on the scanner. And then I will color it in Photoshop and do anything else that needs to be done. And I usually will put a texture on at the end so it looks less digital. And I usually do like an ink texture that I made myself. I just painted a whole piece of paper with some India ink and a watercolor brush, and I just scanned it in, so I'll put that on top, and then it's usually done.
That is a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it has its advantages. You can continually tune the thing as you go along.
Right, and then there's other times when it gets even more complicated, like if I'm doing an image where the image itself is going to be really large, like say it's something that's going to be 18x24 for a client, I can't draw that large because my scanner is only 9x12. Mm-hmm. So I might do the base drawing and then zoom in to a part of the drawing I've scanned in and print it out, and then put a piece of tracing paper over, and then add in more detail, and scan the piece of tracing paper with the extra detail, and then add that into the drawing.
Okay.
So I can also like collage my drawings together to make like a larger image because I don't have a scanner that's huge.
Well, you line it all up like a big old puzzle. Mm-hmm. I did some of that today myself.
Yeah.
Working with large format printers and vinyl, you gotta align and overlap and panel stuff. So yeah, I get that. Mm-hmm. I did plenty of that today.
Yeah, I mean, we had really large scanners at art school, but then when I graduated, I was looking at scanners on eBay. It's crazy, the price jump between like a 9x12 and a large format.
Yeah, well, when you're talking anything above like 36 inches, it gets ridiculous. You know, you can pay $10,000 for a 60-inch wide plotter if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, on eBay, I was seeing the 9x12s. You can get them for like $100 or $200, and then the next size up is like, I don't know, 36 inches by something, or like several feet by several feet, and it's like $2,000 for a used one.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and there's just nothing in between.
So we find workarounds.
Yeah.
Good thing the digital canvas can be whatever size it needs to be.
Exactly.
So, in your workflow, do you find any like flow state or moments of zen when you're just in the process doing the thing?
Oh yeah, for sure. I guess I can explain it best by kind of like my audio choices for when I'm working.
Please elaborate.
Okay, so like when I am coming up with ideas and just drawing things from my imagination, then I can't listen to anything that takes a lot of thought, like a podcast. I just can't concentrate on it. So I'll either listen to nothing, or I'll listen to some music that is kind of mindless. It could be like any kind of music, really. And then once I know what I'm doing, like once I see the plan ahead of me and I just have to get the plan done, then I can listen to like a podcast about, could be like anything, like some story.
So when you're over the hump of that mental labor.
Yeah, when I'm just drawing stuff when I'm basically at the stage that's like drawing from observation, so I've like made my collage that I'm going to draw from, then it's just copying what's on the screen that I've made, but doing it in pencil. And so that's pretty mindless for me because I've drawn from observation for so many years. So I can just like listen to anything else. And then I kind of go into a flow state, and then it's like I zone out, and then I wake up and it's done.
Is that also when you find out that you're really thirsty and you're hungry and like you need to go use the bathroom, and you have to remind yourself that you're a person?
That's when I get up and like my entire back makes popping sounds. Yeah.
That's always the worst part of that, because then you're like, oh shit, I'm human. I have a body.
Yeah.
I'm thirsty. You know.
Yeah. You wake up from it and you look at it and you're like, oh my God, did I really do that? And then you're like, oh, I have to.
You look around, you're alone. Nobody else did it.
Yeah. Then you remember that you're not an art robot and you actually have to like take care of yourself.
Right. That'll be me at like 2 p.m. on a good art day.
Yeah.
So now that we're talking about art days, what's a good art day look like for you?
Honestly, I'm more productive at night.
Well, I mean, day is relative.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like nocturnal, but I think that art school kind of programmed me to be that way because
you're working when you're not in class.
Yeah, we would be in class or doing our jobs, like if we had jobs all day. And then, oh, we have a project due tomorrow. Well, let's cram until 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. And the labs were open 24 hours.
Oh, boy.
So.
Yeah, so you had all the access.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have like one perfect art day. Maybe just like one where I go into the studio and I don't have to pack any orders or anything, and I can just zone out, like listen to some podcasts that are like really riveting, and just feel kind of like a kid at story time in the library, like, you know.
Yeah. The sense of awe and wonder.
Yeah, that's how I feel when I'm listening to like a really good story. Like I'm just 5 years old in the library and we're on like a class field trip.
To some library you don't go to very often.
Yeah, or like, you know, when in elementary school they would take you to the school library every now and then to like teach you about how a library works.
Yeah, one not in the school.
Yeah, and it was like so exciting, or at least it was for me. But
anytime you got out of the school was exciting.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's on a bus or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've never even really thought about that question. So I don't know if I can fully answer it.
That's okay. That means it's a good question.
It is a good question.
So I really like asking people about their workflows and how they generate their ideas, because no two people have the same answer to that question. And it's really great. And kind of one of the ways I augment that question is, how many of your ideas do you feel like are 100% yours? How many of your ideas do you feel as if they just appeared to you or you were a conduit for?
I don't feel like I would be honest if I said that anything is 100% mine. It's kind of like, there's that book out that's called like Steal Like an Artist. I haven't read it. I really should. But I mean, I've heard professors lecture from it. So, I mean, probably anything I do is inspired by multiple things. And then it has like my perspective or my personality added into it.
But that doesn't equate ownership in this definition for you.
Well, it's like my remix of reality or something.
I mean, that sounds pretty like you own it. You said my.
Yeah. I mean, I own like the thing I've made, but the things I'm pulling from are not like completely within myself.
Oh, that's the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
The ether, the society.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a fair take on that, I think.
Yeah.
So what about the things that just like slap you in the face and you had they just hit you? The ideas that just come.
Oh yeah. Well, those usually come to me like when I'm not doing art, like
in the worst possible moment.
Yeah.
Of course.
Like if I'm driving across town or something and like you can't even write anything down, you just hope that, because you can't take your hands off the wheel. And
right, we all drive responsibly.
Yeah. And you just hope that you remember it to like until when you get to wherever it is you're trying to go.
And it's the 20-minute trek across town too. It's not like you're driving for 45 minutes because Knoxville's not huge, but it's just long enough for you to have a good like relaxed state of mind while you're driving. And then
and you hope that like no one does anything crazy in front of you that might make you forget like some driver switching lanes without using their turn signal or something, like going over multiple lanes or something. But yeah, or like when I'm skating, then sometimes I'll think of things. I think that maybe that's just a sign that balance is important for art in general, like having balance in your life as a creative, or at least for me. Because it's like they say something about you can't like pull from like a dry well. You have to go out and experience life in order to think of things. So, I don't know. Does that answer it?
It does. It really does. That the dry well it can be its own source of inspiration, but darn, it's really difficult to work with. I try not to pull from it. I try to seek other creative things outside of, my artistic practice. I ride a longboard and do shenanigans like that. Moving meditation, I think, is really important. And art and flow state is the most common way I experience that in my life. I just think it's a necessary part of not only being a creative person, but being a human being, because you got to let your brain relax sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big problems that people have in art school, is that a lot of my classmates would be like, oh, any spare time that I have, I should spend like learning about anything I can within the industry. And I get it that there's always more to learn. But if you've lived in a town for 4 years and you've never explored it at all,
that's a really good sign you need to get out of the apartment.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you might learn something from one of the art books at the library, or from some lecture you saw online or something, or from some workshop at the college you attended. You might. But where are you pulling ideas from if you're just in the classroom all the time? Like, you need to go like downtown or to a museum, or just like go wander around and be elsewhere for a bit.
And be doing nothing. elsewhere.
Yeah.
You don't have to be doing something actively, just being somewhere is living.
Yeah, and they would be like, oh, I don't have time to go with you to the farmer's market or something. Oh, I'm so busy. I'm doing all these extracurricular projects and stuff. And then, the same people would be like, how are you never running out of ideas?
Oh, no, I touch grass. I leave the house. I see the sunshine occasionally.
Yeah.
I pet dogs.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got to get out and pet dogs.
Yeah, you got to get out there. And, if you're going to make art about the world, you have to kind of go experience it. It's like how they say, write about what you know. If you don't know what the world is like, how are you going to make anything people can relate to?
It'd be extremely difficult. It'd be like, shooting in the dark.
Yeah.
So, now, since we've touched on inspirations and whatnots, do you have a core group of inspiration that really, light your creative fire, or is it just, more so the myriad of experience that you draw from?
Well, I have certain artists that I pull from a lot stylistically. So that would be like Charles Dana Gibson and also Molly Crabapple. Well, I would like pretty much everything that Molly Crabapple does, also from a meaning standpoint as well. And I also really like 60s kind of lifestyle illustration, but also the more kind of psychedelic fashion illustrations. So those are my top visual inspirations.
Well, they don't all have to be visual. What else really, tickles your fancy?
I would say music in general. I make a lot of music illustration, and that's really fun for me. And also things about nature. I love going to the Smokies and bringing my sketchbook and just drawing anything there. That never gets old for me. So, if nothing else, those two things are good.
I'm glad you mentioned your sketchbook, because one of the things I like to ask people is what the notepad in their phone or the journal they carry, what's it look like?
Well, I could show you, but it's in the other room.
That's all right.
All of my sketchbooks are really fat.
That sounds like a good thing.
It is a good thing. All sketchbooks should be fat, I think.
And full of sketches.
Yeah. Well, the reason why mine are fat is because, I'll draw on the pages and paint on them with media that maybe isn't meant for that paper, so the paper kind of curls a little. That's okay. But also, people get so scared of messing up their sketchbook pages. But, it doesn't matter because it's your sketchbook. There's no rules. You can do whatever you want with it. If you don't like what you've done, you can cut the page out, or you can glue something on top of it, or you can paint over it. So you have, a fresh blank slate, and then you can draw or paint on that. There's so many things that you can do. So I glue a lot of stuff into my sketchbooks. I'll glue drawings on top of drawings if I don't like them, or I'll glue in collages. If there's a drawing where it looks good on one side, but it's bled through to the other side of the page, and I'm like, oh, the bled through side is ugly. Let's glue something on that. So that's why mine are really thick.
So when we say thick, how thick are we talking?
Well, it'll be I don't know how to describe it. It's almost looking
let's use words and not numbers, because that's more fun.
Yeah, it's almost looking triangular. When you look at the side of it, from the spine, fanning out. Yeah. And then the outsides of them are always covered in stickers.
What kind of stickers?
Well, the one that I'm in right now has all stickers that I've made. Well, all of my stickers on the front, because I'm also using it for product photos to sell my stickers online. But the back of it is just random stickers that I got from people at the punk rock flea market.
Wherever they may be.
Different art fairs, wherever, record stores, doesn't matter. Anything, as long as it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only requirement for a sticker.
Yeah. Or maybe my friends might send me some in the mail, and then I use those.
Fair. So triangular, what size do you normally working?
Well, I usually have 2 sketchbooks going at the same time. So one of them is a pocket sketchbook. So I would say around 4x6-ish, or maybe a little smaller, maybe like 3x5. And I like to have ones that have kind of a mixed media paper, so that I can do pretty much anything on them and it'll be okay. And that size is really good because it fits in my back pocket usually, and I can bring it in my purse too if I don't have any pockets that day. It's just good to have, because sometimes you're in line when you don't expect to be, and it gets really boring, and it really it helps the time to pass. Like if you're in line at the airport waiting to go through security for like 30 minutes, you can draw the people in front of you. So
I'm guilty of such things.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, I've never really had anybody ask me to stop. I mean, if they ask me to stop, I will, but no one seems to notice or care, or like care in a bad way.
You know, now that I think about it, I've never had anybody ask me to stop either.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if somebody asks me to stop, I'll be like, oh, sorry. And I'll just draw somebody else. It's fine. But yeah. And the other one that I usually keep is around 8x10 to 9x12. Actually, I have 3 going. Yeah. I have one that's the 8x10 that has stickers on it. That's like for fun. And then I have one that's like just a 9x12 sketch pad that I'm just using for all of my drawings that I like scan in for illustrations. They're not necessarily sketches, but it's in a sketchbook just to keep it all together.
I mean, that happens.
Yeah.
Lots of things end up inside the sketchbook, apparently.
Yes. Anything can go in a sketchbook. I even had an art teacher who would glue feathers in that she found in her yard.
I mean, feathers are super cool.
Yeah. And that way you never lose them.
Right. And they're in her sketchbook on the bookshelf, like right over there, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I just don't... I know there's a lot of people who feel insecure about people looking at their sketchbooks, like, oh, that's really private or something. And, like, I respect that some people feel that way, but that was never my experience growing up because, I mean, I kind of make sketchbooks knowing that people are probably going to ask what's in them at some point. Like, not putting too much pressure on myself, but I've just kind of like grown up showing people my sketchbook, or like I'd be drawing in it in the back of math class and the kids around me would be like, what are you doing? Can I see?
Yeah. And I feel like there's some reasonable expectation of maybe not so much privacy, but you have to deal with some people's curiosity sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean, if there's like some pages that are really private to you,
don't show those.
you could cover them up, or you could not show that sketchbook. You could keep all the private sketches to one book, and you could do another one.
Yeah, there's 1,000 ways to make this work.
Yeah, or you could cut them out and you could put them in a box.
Under your bed, because they're private.
Yeah.
Where else do you put private things?
Yeah.
Under your bed. Mm-hmm. So, do you have any particular hierarchy with your current row of sketchbooks, or are they just off, one, like all over the place, all of them?
Yeah, they're all over the place.
So you don't have like a specific thing you put in this one or a specific that one?
No.
So it's just free for all.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, some pages will be figure models from figure drawing class. Some of them will be plein air, like in the Smokies. Some of them might be like random doodles. I also keep logs of my sales at art fairs in them. And
because it's handy and it's
yeah,
right there.
And then I don't lose it. And also, if the art fair is slow, I might draw some of the people at the fair next to my stats for what I've sold that day.
That's an interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah, it's kind of like a whole
That's the
picture
inside and
of it.
outside.
Yeah.
That's one hell of a page.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a bunch of those that I drew this summer, and I intended to ink them and then scan them in and post them, but I haven't done it yet because I don't like leaving things in pencil in my sketchbooks because I don't like when the pages rub together and it gets gray.
I hate that so much.
Yeah.
So much.
That is probably my least favorite thing about pencil. Everything else about it is good.
I thought you were going to say sketchbooks for a second.
No, pencil in particular, because I'm left-handed, so my hand drags across the page.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, so with doing pencil, I mean, I just remember like the side of my hand turning silver, and then you get like calluses on your pinky from it rubbing on the paper.
I try to do ambidextrous things when I remember to challenge myself or feel like I really want to be upset with how my body works.
Yeah.
And yeah, like just all of it, gray, silver.
Yeah.
And then you go touch anything that isn't the piece of paper and it just like magically gets on whatever was closest to your hand, whether you touched it or not. And all of a sudden it's a mess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the only ambidextrous thing that I do is if I have to do a drawing that is supposed to look like a child did it,
Ooh.
which happens sometimes.
Yeah.
I do that with my non-dominant hand, and I just hope that it's convincing.
Allegedly. That you're not letting the secret out. Allegedly you do this.
Oh, well, no, I mean, I posted this online. It's not a secret.
Oh, okay. So it's fact now. All right.
No, it's not like I'm trying to cheat and do a child's homework for them. It's like...
Right, but...
It's like for like a book or something.
To keep the mystery about it. I don't, the customers, I don't know.
Oh, I don't operate off of mystery. It's okay. There's enough other mysterious things in the world.
No, that's fair. Do you ever just blatantly tell people you just drew it with your left hand when they ask if you could do child stuff? Or your right hand?
Well, nobody's ever really asked me that specifically to do stuff that looks like a child's drawn it, but it's just if I'm doing an illustration that has like a part of it is supposed to be like a child's drawing on the table.
Oh, okay.
Then like for that part, I'll use my right hand.
I'm right-handed, so my left hand is the one that always catches the flack.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really bad for not setting up my desk or work table or whatever to cater to my dominant hand. I'll be like a wet brush all the way over here on the left side of the thing, and I'll pull it back and be like, oh, yeah, and then just like drips of water all over my canvas. I'm just like, what? Why did I do this to myself? And then I'll move the thing. So I'm really bad for that.
Yeah, well, it's all a learning process. I mean, I'm sure there's things I'm doing now that in a year I'll look back and be like, why didn't I do it this other way?
Oh, for sure. Like if you're not continually revising your workflow, you're not working in it hard enough.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's part of it as any kind of creative is like even if you don't go to school or if you don't go back to school or anything, like you're a constant learner. If you're any type of creative, like visual, non-visual, doesn't matter. Like you're learning stuff your whole life.
And if you're not, you're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So you've mentioned art school a time or two. Can you tell us more about your formal art education?
Yeah, I went to Ringling College of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida, and I studied illustration. I got a BFA and I got a minor in art history.
Has that come in handy, the art history minor?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, obviously, like I'm a freelancer. I'm not like employed, like by like a company. But it does really help when I'm thinking about how I want to approach different subjects or different like visual analogies I might want to make. Like using because you can build off of like visual language that has already been created, which I've done with I've made some art that's kind of been like building off of like medieval design motifs and like popular medieval art subjects, but using it in a modern context to put across like modern ideas.
So is that like a framework for your composition and ideological aspects of the piece?
For those pieces, yeah. I mean, I don't use art history for every piece, but it does come in handy. I'm a big fan of history in general because all it is stories, and narrative in general is just like really important to me as an illustrator. Yeah. I mean, there's just so much. You could never learn it all. There's so many crazy things that have happened in the world.
So many we'll never know about because it happened before things started being written down.
Yeah, or when it happened, people thought, oh, there's no point in writing this down. Nobody wants to know.
And then all of a sudden, 1,000 years later, it's supremely relevant for something.
Even things that happened in the 70s, like because they didn't have social media and they didn't have like digital cameras and stuff like that, there's just some things that even though those people are still alive, we'll just never know because it'll be like, oh, this person says this thing, but this other person says this other thing. And like, who can know the truth without having to go back in time?
Right. So time travel would be your chosen superpower?
I don't know. It's a very overwhelming, because then if you think about it too much, it gets really scary with like all these theoreticals, like the butterfly effect and stuff. Like, isn't that what it's called? Or like the ripple effect? Like you change one tiny thing and then everything else is changed. That's very scary.
Very scary.
Yeah.
I would hate to leave and come back and expect the same thing and then everything be different.
Well, I would hate to leave and come back and then everything is different in a way that's worse.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, if it was different in a way that was better, like...
Who would complain?
If it was different, like, oh, Trump was never president, then who's going to complain, right? Like...
Lots of people would never complain.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure, like, all the people that voted for him, they'd probably be upset about something. But they're always going to be upset.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. They always got to find something to fuss about.
Yeah.
They have that need.
Yes.
Bless them.
I don't know. I think that could be fun, but I've never really thought about... Well, I've never decided on which superpower that I would like to have.
Wait. Why just one?
That's usually the question, isn't it? Just which one would you have if you could have one, right?
Yeah, but really, if we want
Okay, well,
one,
what's yours?
I would love to be invisible, and I would love to fly.
I think that flying would be really fun because, like, I'm not afraid of heights, and so I don't think it would be scary for me, and I think it would just be so convenient.
I just think being invisible is, like, the most opposite thing you can do as a human being that has a physical body. So it'd be really cool to be nothing, or at least nobody else be able to see you and still have this body. Essentially invisible. But flying... Like, the reason I ride a longboard is because it kind of feels like flying. The reason I do a lot of things, like, I drive fast and do whatever, you know.
Yeah.
It feels like flying to me, and I really enjoy the sensation of acceleration and G-forces, and I would very much enjoy being able to fly, kind of like Superman, you know, just self-propelled.
Yeah, well, that's the way I would want to do it, too. Like, not a jetpack or anything like that.
Cape? Yes? No?
Cape, of course.
Capes are kind of dangerous.
I know they're dangerous, but...
You like to live on the edge.
Hey, I mean, if you're going to take the risk, you might as well look cool, right?
Capes are very cool.
It's going to be cold up there, too, and it's going to keep you warm. It's like a big blanket.
You got me. I've never thought of a cape as a blanket, but yeah.
But that's what it is, right? It's kind of like a Snuggie, but it looks cooler.
I always thought, if anything, it's a style blanket. Because a cape is definitely an accessory and a big one.
Yeah, it's a blanket that's tied to you.
Sometimes down to your ankles. Mm-hmm. But yeah, not once have I ever thought of a cape as a blanket. So yeah, you got me. I learned something today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So let's get back on track here. What are some things right now, medium-wise, that you would like to dip your toes in? What are the next things you're going to play with medium-wise?
Well,
or if there is a next.
Well, of course, there's always a next. But I would like to get back into oil painting. I did a lot of oil painting in art college because it was mandatory. It was very fun, but now that I am starting to have more opportunities in my career, which I'm super grateful for, I don't really, it's like there's less time to do things that are risky, especially oil painting, because like I have all the stuff. I know how to do it, but it's so messy once you set it up, and it gets everywhere, and it takes so long to dry, and the fumes are so bad for you.
It's like the list of why you shouldn't do this is longer than the
I know,
list
but
of
it's
why
so
you should.
fun. I mean, have you done it? It feels like painting with butter.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, it's so much more fun than painting with acrylics. I also would like to learn how to sew, like with a sewing machine, and I was looking on Facebook Marketplace. It's like $50 for a sewing machine, which is kind of dangerous knowledge because
you're going to get like 3 sewing machines.
Well, because I could get one, but I don't have any time for it right now.
Oh, is that the dangerous part? The time?
Yeah.
The time investment?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't get 3. I would only need 1, but...
You got to figure out which one you like, though, and that might be a process.
I mean, I feel like I would take whatever they say is the easiest and the best deal to start with. I mean, that's kind of what I did with roller skates, too. I just got the ones that everyone else was getting that were a good deal. And then I upgraded once I knew more.
Right. Well, I hope if you do acquire a $50 Facebook Marketplace sewing machine, you put it to good use and stretch its legs.
Thanks. Yeah. I also want to get into printmaking more. I've been meaning to start block printing fabric or learning how to screen print, maybe both, because I have all these pattern designs, but I have no way that makes economic sense at the moment to put them onto fabrics, because ordering them from one of these sites that would print it for you is like you have to order such a huge quantity, and then it's just reams of fabric, and then you got to sew it into something or else nobody wants it.
Right. They can't just be buying nice fancy fabric.
Yeah.
Who does that? Well,
yeah, people don't really do that.
So do you have a specific goal, or are there garments or things you would like to make specifically, or is it just I would like to play in that arena?
I don't have specific garments in mind. I mean, I think it would be cool if I learned how to sew and if I understood patterns, like sewing patterns, to make vintage sewing patterns that you can't find the stuff except for at a vintage store, and then it's got like moth holes in it and it's like super expensive. I think it would be cool to do that kind of stuff eventually, but I don't know that I would sell it. I might just wear it. But I want to just figure out ways to like make my patterns real. Like they're real in a digital world, but that doesn't really count to me.
Yeah, because it's not tangible yet.
Yeah, I want them to be tangible. And before anybody says, or before you say, oh, what about spoon flour? I've looked into it.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, well, I'll explain. Do you know what Redbubble is?
Yes, I know it. Oh, you're talking about a print-on-demand service.
It's a print-on-demand, but it's like more high-end. And you can like sell your stuff through there, kind of like Redbubble. But the thing is that in order to get your stuff, to get them to approve it for sale, you have to buy a fabric swatch to be sent to you in the mail each time. And the cheapest one you can buy is $5. And if it's not right, you have to keep paying for more until they make it right. And that's for every swatch. So if I have like 20 patterns.
Yeah, there's $100 worth of swatches right there.
Yeah, and then I don't know that I'm even going to make it back.
Right. I mean, it's cool that that's an outlet, but it's not the most opportune.
I mean, it might work for me later on, but right now it doesn't.
Well, so it's more of just a general desire to get into that. And so making those kind of patterns, are those the kind of clothes you would want to wear? Like in general, not just like, I'm going to dress up and go do this thing.
I mean, I think that it's fun some days to just dress up because it's like a Tuesday or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need an excuse to leave your house or to go to the grocery store. And even if only like 2 people that you have no idea who they are see you in your outfit, then at least you're like, hey, I did something. I left the house.
I wore this fire outfit. I left the house. People saw me outside.
Yeah, people saw me existing in the world. Whether they liked it or not, doesn't matter.
So I also want to learn to sew for practical reasons. I have not found a tool pouch that I like to wear. Mm-hmm. For some reason, every one I've ever had has just had a few too many like annoyances. So I'm going to have to fix that at some point. Since I haven't found one that I like, I'm going to have to make my own. Mm-hmm. And that's a common theme in my creative practice.
Well, then maybe you should sell them too, because I'm sure there's other people who would agree with you.
See, here's the other part. I'm selfish.
Yeah.
I want my stuff for a little while. I might sell it later, but right now I want to enjoy it and work out the kinks.
Well, you could have the prototype, but then like you make one that's perfect for you, and then maybe other people start asking.
Maybe. It is kind of like that in the sign industry, but we'll see. First, I'm going to be selfish and make myself one. Then we can go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's usually how my stuff works. Like,
that's how it was with like the shoes I've been selling.
Which you've been painting some really cool shoes and accessories lately. Thanks. I really dig them.
That's also like a way for me to make use of the pattern designs I've made, because I can just literally paint them on the shoe, and it doesn't take that much time, but I know it's not as efficient as if I could like print stuff on,
but it's bespoke.
Yeah, it is. So I mean, it's fun, but the way I started doing that was I was skating my cheapo vinyl skates and falling in the parking lots, as you do when you're a beginner.
As one does.
Yeah, and so then I got black streaks all over the sides of my turquoise skates.
Oh.
Yeah, and so then I took him into Jerry's Artorama, and I was like, "Can you help me?"
To the altar of Jerry's, I held up my skate.
Yeah.
Oh, that place. I
They're
love
the
that
best.
Place.
It's so dangerous when you walk in there. You know you're going to spend money.
It's at least $5 for me every time because I have to buy a script like a watercolor brush, a long skinny watercolor brush. I use so many of those in my work. Mm-hmm. So I just can't go in there without buying like 3 of them.
Yeah.
It's terrible, but God, it keeps me stocked in brushes.
Well, at least, it is cheaper than a lot of other art supply stores are. So, I mean, I'm grateful to have them. But they showed me the leather paints, and I didn't know those existed.
And then the world flipped upside down. And
yeah, well, then after I fixed my skates, I was like, oh, I could just, I could make what I want to see in the world, for myself.
Right.
And I didn't even think about that other people would want it. And so then I made 2 pairs for myself, just painted on some shoes that I found from Goodwill. I just wore them around town, and people would ask me if I was selling them. And I was like, no, but maybe I should.
You should sweet talk me a little more and see if I paint you a pair.
Yeah. I was like, these are just for me. I just made these because I couldn't afford to buy designer or whatever. I just made my own.
Well, they're designer now.
Yeah. Yeah, me. I'm
yeah,
designer.
Exactly.
I'm not sure if I should sign them or not. I feel like it's weird to sign a shoe. I don't know.
I've never asked myself this question. Would I sign a shoe? I mean, why not leave your mark? You already left a mark. Why not leave your mark?
That's true. Maybe I should initial them or something in a small place.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be flamboyant.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I would do the full signature like I would do on a painting because that's kind of strange.
Do you have a full scripty signature you put on your paintings?
Well, it's not anything special. It's just my name in cursive.
You still write cursive?
Yeah.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I hate seeing people not able to write cursive anymore. It's
some
wild.
People who teach school now, who teach K through 12 now, told me that
it's not in the curriculum.
Yeah,
and
because
amazing.
of that, apparently the kids, even in middle school, have the worst handwriting because they didn't learn those skills.
Yeah, the fine motor skills. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, even their print apparently is really hard to read. And I've heard that they are adding it back because they've realized how detrimental it is to students
well, I
developing.
hope so. I really enjoyed learning that.
Apparently it's it can also be related to drawing and just hand-eye coordination.
Well, it's all fluid motion. It's, one of those just muscle memory things.
Yeah.
And, anybody that can write cursive can sign their, write their name in the dark.
Well, that was the other thing. They were realizing these kids didn't know how to do a signature. And they couldn't sign a check.
Well, I can't tell you the last time I signed a check, but that is a valid example.
Or they didn't know how to endorse the back of a check or something,
Well, I wonder if you're the bank teller person and you see this, what do you do when you can't read their handwriting?
I don't know. I mean, but then there's those doctors, who are supposedly writing in cursive and they were taught it because they're 60, but
they just go scribble, scribble, and then here's your medication.
It's if I looked at it without my glasses on or something, I would be yeah, I guess that's handwriting.
Right. And if you squint just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's in the works right now for you? Do you have any projects rolling around right now?
Yeah, I do. Well, one of the reasons why I've been doing so much with the leather painting is because I can't post about the other things I'm doing right now. I mean, I can tell you, but I can't show them yet.
Well, if you don't want to tell me, that's totally okay.
No, it's okay. I mean, I just can't post it yet.
So it's still in flux.
I mean, it's not a secret that I have done this work, but it's just I can't show the image yet.
Oh, so there's a media embargo on this image.
Yeah, well, it's...
Ooh.
Well, NDAs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's essentially like that. I mean, I didn't sign exactly an NDA, but So I did the tour poster for Joan Jett and the Blackhearts.
Oh, yeah. I saw you talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's coming out sometime this year. I can't publish it until Blackheart Records publishes it first.
Right.
I'm allowed to say I've done it, but
you're just going to tease the whole world.
Yeah. So if you see an image related to that I have already posted, that is not the official poster. That was a fan poster.
There you go.
So, and I marked that on the post, but I don't know if people read it or not. So
people barely read. They barely write cursive.
I know. I know. Yeah. And then also I'm working on, well, actually, I made a graphic novel pitch. I'm waiting to see if that gets picked up or not. And if it doesn't get picked up, it'll be a zine that I publish myself. So either way, you'll see it at some point. I can't say more than that because I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, don't do that.
And then also I've got a show coming up in February.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Put it out there what it is.
It's going to be a show of my painted shoes at Rolla.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's a good spot for that.
We haven't decided on a name yet because we were just talking about it this weekend, and it's a Monday when we're recording this, and they are closed on Mondays. So I presented some possible names to them, so we'll find out what they go with. And then I'm probably going to be submitting some work to some group shows. But yeah, that's about it. That's like concrete right now. I have other things that possibly could happen, but I don't know yet.
Well, they can remain undisclosed.
Yeah. Oh, wait, I do have one other thing. I mean, it's further in the future, but I'm going to be doing a residency at Berea College.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. In Kentucky.
Yeah, I've been there. I rode by there the other day.
Yeah, I've driven through there a bunch of times. And yeah, so it's going to be for 4 days in the summer. And then I'm going to make some work based off of what I see in the 4 days. And then we're going to put the show up for October of this year at Berea College.
Is it a group thing? You and other people are going to be doing this?
It's me and one other visiting artist. And our work will be combined with a 19th century artist work.
Ooh, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
I know. I'm really excited, too.
Well, you should be excited. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. And then I'm just like trying to figure out which art fairs I'm going to apply to. And who knows what I'll get into. We'll see. But I'll be doing some amount of art fairs probably.
Well, I've seen you around at the Severe Market. Mm-hmm. Done that one a few times.
Yeah. Yeah, they do that one every month, but I'm taking at least January off from art fairs because I did 4 of them in December. So.
Yeah, I don't blame you one bit. They can be stressful.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to plan out, like when I think people are going to start coming out of their houses again to shop.
In the spring.
Yeah.
when they leave hibernation.
Well, some of the art fairs are overlapping Dogwood Arts Festival, which could be a problem. And then I don't know if I'm going to be doing something with Dogwood Arts Festival or not, because I've worked with them in the past, so it's unclear, figuring it out. But I'll be around.
So you're saying there's a lot of potential for shenanigans?
Yes, always. There's always shenanigans.
Right.
Yes.
So are you working on any pet projects for yourself? Are you being selfish?
Am I? Well, I guess it's just whenever I design stuff on my own, when I make new things for my shop, though that's just personal work that I've done. So I guess I'm always doing that. I mean, I don't have anything specific. It's more like quick illustrations. Basically anything that comes to me that I haven't been commissioned to do is kind of like a pet project, I guess.
Until it becomes really serious and you just have to go full bore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good way to go about it.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I think, well, I do have some things that might be pet projects down the line. I have some small, comic page things that I've written down the ideas. I haven't even sketched them out yet. But I want to do a few, little, 1 or 2 page comics, based off of, things in my life. So maybe you will see those if I have time.
I trust that you can find the time for such personal joys.
Yeah, well, probably.
Well, I don't know or can't remember if you did the things at the top of the recording, but if you will tell people where they can find you out and about on the internet and your storefronts and all that jazz, I would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. So online you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at esther.sketch, and that's ESTHER_sketch. You won't find me if you leave the H out of my first name. Maybe you will, but let's not chance it.
The SEO is very important.
Yeah, and then there's a link tree in my bio on all my social media to all my other sites, and I have a real website too, but that might get updated soon, so I don't want to give that out. I mean, you can see it, but the URL might change. And then I'm on Etsy, and that's linked off of my social media. And I sell through a bunch of shops in town: Earth to Old City, Knoxville Museum of Art, East Tennessee History Center, Union Avenue Books, Rolla. I'm also selling through, I think it's Gentry Mercantile in Maryville, and Merging Metals in Asheville, and the KOA in Newport, Tennessee. I think that's all the places.
That's not a short list.
Did I say Earth to Old City?
You did.
Okay, yeah.
All right, well, I guess we can wrap it up. I try not to keep people for too much longer than an hour. I really appreciate your time and your energy with this conversation, and that has been the first KAAMP episode of 2023. Thank y'all for listening, and thank you for doing the thing.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.